And now, live from the most watched television station in the Arklatex, this is KSLA News 12 This Morning.
Good morning, folks. Thanks for starting your Thursday with us. I'm Sharon Frames. This morning making news. Another night of bloodshed in parts of Shreveport. Two separate shootings have left 3 people injured. Just after 11 last night, gunshots fired from a passing car in the 5900 block of Southern. A little over an hour later, 30-year-old Ronald Rushing was struck down by a bullet. That shooting happened in the 3000 block of West College. Rushing remains in the hospital this morning, listed in stable condition. No arrest in either of these cases.
Scarface, one of the lead singers for Rap-A-Lot's Ghetto Boys, is gunned down in Shreveport.
If he wanted to kill somebody, he should have killed the people that were shooting inside the building.
Recently, drugs was planted and a murder took place in Shreveport.
A fight breaks out with a local gang. Shots are fired.
They got me. Huh? They got me, cuz.
According to a corrupt cop that watched it all play out, in January of 1993, the bodyguard for the Houston rapper known as Scarface was shot to death in Shreveport, Louisiana, when several shots were fired into a crowd outside of a Waffle House after a show in the city. One of the victims, Rudy Sanders, hailed from Houston, Texas, and was a close friend as well as bodyguard to Brad Jordan, aka Scarface. Rudy and Face went to the Waffle House after a concert that Saturday night. A fight erupted and spilled outside around 2:30 a.m. Sunday morning, leading to the shooting. These are the detailed events of what took place before, during, and after the attempted murder of Scarface. Brad Jordan, aka Scarface, is one of hip-hop's most accomplished storytellers, a profound writer who uses his understanding of the criminal underworld, aka the mean grimy streets, to paint vivid pictures to fans and listeners around the world. For the better part of 3 decades, Face has been a defining voice on Houston's rap scene, a pioneer whose emphasis on gangsterism and realism influenced how a generation of rappers would approach the game. As a member of the Ghetto Boys, Face provided a glimpse inside the minds of the killers and dealers in Houston's dangerous Fifth Ward, depicting a harsh reality where the only way to defy a broken system is to embrace the menace it made you to be. As a solo artist, Face's lyrics have also been known to be empathetic, finding compassion for both shooters and the victims, mourning the dead and the living alike. Simply put, the man born Brad Jordan has seen some shit, first as a hustler, then as an up-and-coming rapper working to put Houston on the map, then as a respected veteran, label executive, and street-savvy old head dropping knowledge. Born in New Jersey, Face came up running the violent streets of the Fifth Ward in Houston, Texas. In his adolescent years, Face attended Woodson Middle School, where he would eventually drop out after jumping off the porch, hustling in the streets. Unbeknownst to many, as a teenager, Face actually tried to off himself and would subsequently spend time in the psychiatric ward. However, life would take a turn for Face when he was introduced to James Smith, aka J. Prince Sr., by Lil Troy, going on to sign to Rap-A-Lot Records as a member of the Ghetto Boys. For Face, 1992 should have been a great year. Mr. Scarface's Back had not only established Face as a solo artist, it had solidified Face's name and his rep. Face was one of the first rappers from any coast to come through talking that street shit on record. While everyone else was talking about how good they could rap, Face was talking that dope talk, and anyone who knew anything about anything had to fuck with Face when they heard it. If you don't know anything about Shreveport, don't get caught slipping thinking shit is just sweet because it's a small town in northwest Louisiana. In Shreveport, it's real in the field. Always has been, always will be. It ain't no mystery and it ain't no joke. If you think those boys are playing out there, then you have another thing coming. Shit can pop off on any given Sunday, and you better be ready whenever it goes down. Face, who had respectfully built a huge buzz in the South, had a show in Shreveport. Same scenario as all the other shows Face had been doing throughout the South and Midwest. These weren't big organized shows. Face was just hitting spot dates. 9 times out of 10, Face would get booked for a show somewhere in Texas or a neighboring state. Face and his entourage would load up early in the day, drive to the show, box the show, collect the bread, grab a bite to eat, fuck with a few bitches, and then drive back to Houston that night or early the next day. Face's crew typically consisted of his manager, BW, his brother Warren, his cousin Jamal, his homeboy Lil Joe, and his homie Rudy Sanders, and a few other random dudes out the hood. Face never rocked with security. If it was gonna go down, it was gonna go down. If the heaters were coming out, the heaters were coming out. Face and his crew were ready for whatever. But no matter how ready you are, whatever doesn't always go as planned. The story goes like this. After performing, Face and his crew slid to the Waffle House when some dude walked up to their table talking crazy. Face and his partners weren't just gonna sit there and take too much of that shit talking. Before you knew it, the situation escalated. Everyone started heading outside to handle their business. It was at this point that shit would pop off. The place erupted and the whole parking lot started brawling. During the big melee, one of the dudes upped their tool and started busting at Face, hitting him in the right leg, just above his knee. As soon as Face got hit, he yelled out, "I'm hit! I'm hit!"
They got me. Huh? They got me, Hey, man.
Scarface, one of the lead singers for Rap-A-Lot's Ghetto Boys, is gunned down in Shreveport. The group has just finished a concert there Saturday night. At a restaurant nearby, a fight breaks out with a local gang. Shots are fired. Scarface is hit in the leg.
One of his partners grabbed him, pulling him inside to make sure he was straight. After dude started busting that Face, the whole entire place lit up. Motherfuckers were shooting in the parking lot, shooting inside of the building, all kind of shit. Bullets were flying everywhere. Face's partner grabbed a heater from one of the dudes that was strapped and not using it. Out of nowhere, an off-duty cop raised up and shot Rudy in his back. Instead of calling for backup at an attempt to de-escalate the situation, the cop would instead shoot and kill the one guy that was trying to provide cover for everyone in the back.
The policeman didn't have his pistol drawn until my partner walked up to the door with his back to the officer, and his life wasn't in danger. No, the officer's life wasn't in danger at all. Not by Rudy. If he wanted to kill somebody, he could. He should have killed the people that were shooting inside the building. The policeman had a gun. The policeman didn't use his gun. I mean, somebody had to defend somebody. I was shot.
Rudy was dead before the ambulance even showed up.
His friend and bodyguard shot and killed. The fatal bullet came from an off-duty police officer.
Face checked out of the hospital that night. The drive home to Houston that morning was only a 4-hour drive from Shreveport. Face slept most of the ride as he was doped up on meds from the hospital.
What happened in Shreveport is another sign of crooked officers, abusing their authority. And once been victimized by police injustice. In fact, recently drugs was planted and a murder took place in Shreveport on one of our friends that was real close to us that could totally been avoided. So we're addressing police who abuse their authority over and over again, and we are addressing the officers that sit back and watch other officers abuse their authority and laugh about it. It's a game. I think it's a conspiracy going on with the police officers conspiring against ghetto boys all over the world who beat the system. And what I mean by beat the system is beginning to have a little money where they're not controlled by, you being an athlete or something like that they can come and watch and enjoy. I think they want to destroy you.
After his wound healed, it took Face a while to walk normally again. Face was confined to a wheelchair for several months. What was shocking most to Face about the entire shit was that Marion Knight, aka Suge Knight of Death Row Records, came to see him while he was in the hospital. What are the chances of a big West Coast guy being in a small town like Shreveport? Face has seen this all before. One of his homies got shot in the leg once and it shattered his femur, tearing his whole leg apart. Face, who was still young, was only 22 years old at the time of the shooting. Having been an athlete in his school years, his leg was still strong from playing football. It was this that had played a part in Face not being severely injured. Instead, the injury caused his muscle to be popped off his bone, working its way down towards the outside of his knee. Doctors never did remove the bullet. It is still in Face's leg today. After no longer needing the wheelchair, Face transitioned to crutches, which he would be on for a few months, ultimately moving on to a cane, which will become a part of his gangster persona. So peep gang, there's one thing for sure and two things for certain. There's a difference between going to war with a motherfucker in his own city and going to war with a motherfucker in your city. You gotta be able to recognize where you are and what you're doing. More importantly, you have to know how to move. When you're on another motherfucker's turf, if you keep it street and stay out of his way, 9 times out of 10, he'll stay out of your way. At the end of the day, Face survived an attempt on his life. His homie was shot and killed. Off-duty officer got away with the murder as it was ruled justifiable homicide. Still, to this day, Shreveport remains one of the most dangerous small cities in Louisiana.
Profits to help reduce crime so we won't have this surge of violence in our community and our citizens will not feel as though they don't live in a safe city.
After the recent surge in gun violence in Shreveport, city leaders say that combating crime is their top priority. It's been a violent start to 2024 as Shreveport has had over 40 shootings and 11 homicides in just 2 months. Thanks for joining us for KSLA News 12 at 10. I'm Bisky Duncan. Tonight, Shreveport city leaders are discussing new efforts to lower crime. It's been a violent start to 2024 as the city has seen nearly a dozen homicides and dozens of shootings. KSLA's Jasmine Franklin met with city leaders and community activists to discuss action being taken to fight gun violence in Shreveport.
Just 2 months into the new year, Shreveport police say the city has already had 11 homicides and over 40 reported shootings.
We're working closely with SPD and some other partnering agencies to go in and try to find preventative measures that we can implement.
With the recent surge of gun violence, city leaders are continuing to take action and making efforts to combat crime.
So when I see crime, especially those crimes that are committed by people of color, that are young men, I have to ask myself, what is it that we're missing?
City leaders and SPD have made several efforts to lower gun violence, including adding more cameras and better lighting across the city.
That means is if a normal approach of what we're doing is not working, then we're going to have to look and think outside of the box.
However, despite increased safety measures in the city, violence continues to prevail. A shooting over the weekend in the Moortown area claimed the life of a 29-year-old man barbecuing in a parking lot. And earlier this month, 1-year-old Carter Martin was shot and killed while sleeping at home.
The only way that you can reduce crime is to penetrate the mind of a potential criminal before he or she commits the crime and show them a different way of handling whatever life obstacles they're facing.
Many violent crimes in Shreveport are committed by juveniles, and community activists say empowering the youth is a step toward lowering crime.
We want people to stop talking on Facebook, complaining, being sideline observers, and get in the game. Say less, do more. Join Dads on Duty. Join some of these other organizations. Work with the preventative methods that people are already doing in order to now help to reduce the actual crime.
City leaders are continuing to implement safety measures to help lower crime in the city. In Shreveport, Jasmine Franklin, KSLA News 12.
And there have been nearly a dozen homicides in Shreveport this year, and many of them remain unsolved with no arrest made in several of these cases. If you have any information on any violent crime in Shreveport, you should contact Shreveport Police, or you can leave a tip anonymously through Crime Stoppers. The number to reach authorities are listed on your screen.